And I kind of had to catch my breath for a moment, like as if my nervous system was asking, is this really okay? Is it safe? Is it okay to let your guard down and to accept this warmth and depth of connection? It took me a minute to adjust to it, as sweet as it felt to receive her care. It took me a minute to open up to that too.
Welcome to How to Trust Yourself, the podcast for anyone who's done with the endless second guessing and ready to tune in to your inner guidance. I'm Anna Holtzman, and I get that feeling of trudging through life like you're wading through mud, trying to figure out which way to go. In my 20s, I spent more time asking what should I do with my life than writing about crushes or bad dates in my journal. I've tried on a lot of answers: architecture, publishing, editing reality TV for a decade, and finally landing on therapy and coaching, helping people like you connect with your purpose. But here's the thing I've learned through all those twists and turns. Trusting yourself is the key to moving forward, even when the path feels messy. So if you're ready to stop doubting yourself and start listening to your gut, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Welcome back, dear listeners. It's so good to be here with you. I am thinking about something that has been an undercurrent of my work for the entire decade and counting that I've been working with clients as a coach and a therapist. And it's really something I've probably been observing for even longer than that. I've been a human on this earth for 49 years at this point, and I've sat with lots of people listening to their pains, their desires, their longings. When people come to work with me, they're often coming to me because they want something. They want less of something or they want more of something. They want more success in their careers, or they want less pain or symptoms if they're experiencing stress-related symptoms or chronic pain. They're wanting more joy in their relationships. They're wanting less anxiety. The list goes on and on. But at the core or the undercurrent of it all, I always feel like there is something universal driving all these desires. And it's really this underlying desire for a sense of belonging and connection. Belonging and connection. Connection to self, connection to others, connection to something greater than self. And it's such a tricky dance, finding connection and belonging, because in order to connect, we need to open up. We need to be vulnerable. And opening ourselves up and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable is always going to be a risk. Because if our openness and vulnerability is not met in kind, it can feel painful, demoralizing, rejecting, even dangerous. And at the same time, if we don't take some calculated risks at opening up and being vulnerable, then we deprive ourselves of the experience that we as human beings, I believe, crave most in life, which is that sense of connection and belonging. So I recently had an experience that really brought this dilemma to mind. I had the pleasure of getting to hang out with one of my cousins, actually, who was visiting New York. Most of my family has moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, and I don't get to see them in person very often. But one of my cousins was recently visiting New York City, and I had the opportunity to have dinner with her, just the two of us, which I honestly don't remember the last time that's happened or if it has ever happened, because whenever we see each other, it's at a larger family gathering. And something took place during that dinner that really caught me off guard in a good way, ultimately. So we sat down to dinner, and I thought, we would just talk about this and that, probably talk about her daughter, who we had just seen in a performance that was really awesome. Um, but when we sat down and took a few breaths and had a little chit chat, my cousin actually asked me a very intimate question about some difficult experiences she had sort of vaguely gleaned that I had navigated in my younger years, that she didn't really know much about, and she was curious to learn more. And when she first asked me the question, I had a really mixed reaction to it because of all of the things I was just mentioning a moment ago. Because what she was really doing was inviting me into potentially an experience of deeper connection with each other and a deeper sense of belonging. And at the same time, there was a part of me that didn't really want to go there because it meant opening up and making myself vulnerable about an experience that at the time when I was a teenager, I had not received a lot of understanding or empathy or connection around. I hadn't felt a sense of belonging back at that time. And so, you know, my nervous system wiring couldn't help but bring up those memories of disconnection and this impulse to shield myself and close up and protect myself was kind of bubbling up in me. At the same time, I thought, this is really generous that she's inviting me into such an intimate conversation. And when else am I going to have the chance to have this kind of connecting, vulnerable conversation with my cousin? We so rarely get to see each other in person. And so I took a chance. I accepted her invitation. I let the words tumble out clumsily about an experience I thought that I had fully processed years ago. And I have done a lot of processing around it. But when I shared this like very tender experience I had in my earliest romantic life that was not a very it was a painful experience, an experience of heartbreak. When I shared this with my cousin, I was taken off guard yet again because as I let the words tumble out in this kind of messy, unformed way, I saw her eyes well up with tears, and I saw her face shift and soften and open into empathy and sadness for the pain and the experience I shared with her. And yeah, empathy. I just felt so much connection and empathy, and that impulse in me that had wanted to stiffen up and close up and guard myself kind of did a backflip because I also wasn't anticipating what it would feel like to receive this tenderness and empathy. And I kind of had to catch my breath for a moment, like as if my nervous system was asking, is this really okay? Is it safe? Is it okay to let your guard down and to accept this warmth and depth of connection? It took me a minute to adjust to it. As sweet as it felt to receive her care, it took me a minute to open up to that too. It wound up being a really special evening that the two of us shared together, and we both came away from it saying to each other how grateful that we were to have this time together, to be related to each other, to have this connection that we've always had with each other, but to have deepened it really through the conversations that we had that evening. And I came away thinking about this pattern that I see in myself, in my clients, in people in the world generally, where, we might think that we share our emotions, that we communicate openly, but there is this pattern that most of us experience of, it's this kind of like stealthy undercover pattern where we start to harden a little bit again. We become stoic. We gravitate towards self-reliance and self-protection. And when these opportunities to connect through vulnerability come up, it it can feel like you're being invited to go for a run when you haven't exercised in a while and your muscles are all stiff, and you really have to take a moment to consider it because you know it's going to feel really good once you've done it, but it can feel a little awkward and clunky and uncomfortable getting into it. And you might have to take a moment to stretch your limbs out first. It also made me think of this summer novel that I'm reading. I love to read novels during the summer. And by read, I mean listen, because I'm listening to it as an audiobook when I go on my walks. I'm reading the novel Carrie Soto Is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's a really juicy one if you are looking for a summer read. And it's about this woman named Carrie who is a tennis player, not just a tennis player, but she's the top tennis player in the world in this book. And this character has lost her mother tragically when she was a child. Her mother passed away, and it was such a deep loss and heartbreak that she learned to cope by becoming very stoic, by hardening herself. And between the loss of her mother and some early romantic heartbreaks in her young life, she learns to cope with this pain of loss by having her walls up and being very defended around other people. And so when she meets this guy who winds up being her love interest later on in the book, this guy who starts to fall in love with her and she really starts to fall in love with him, it takes her a long and difficult process to open up to him. And initially, she keeps pushing him away and really almost sabotaging the relationship. And in doing so, almost sabotaging herself. Because, of course, just like each one of us, underneath that need to protect herself and keep her walls up in order to avoid being hurt again, she, like all of us, has the very human desire to feel a sense of connection and belonging, which she ultimately, with the encouragement of her father, step by step, bit by bit, she does begin to take small risks and build trust with herself and with the person who becomes her partner, and does eventually get to feel that sense of connection and belonging she had been so craving for so many years. So, I have an invitation to you, dear listener, because my guess is you may be relating to at least some aspect of these stories, some thread of it, some aspect of developing this stoicism where you're consciously or unconsciously guarding yourself while at the same time longing to connect and belong. And if you are relating to that, I want to invite you to first ask yourself, what am I actually trying to protect myself from? What am I trying to protect myself from? Is it from something that happened in the past? And do the present circumstances truly bear evidence that this past hurt is going to happen again? Or is there some evidence, some glimmers in my present circumstance that suggest that things might actually go differently? That if I open up and allow myself to be vulnerable with a thoughtfully chosen person, that I might actually experience something different from hurt. And there might actually be the possibility of feeling a deeper connection with them. And you might ask yourself, if I were to be met with appreciation, with empathy, with understanding, what would that feel like? And would I be willing to let in at least one drop of that empathy, connection, or understanding? And finally, I invite you to ask yourself, who is one person, not a whole bunch of people, just who is one person that I feel interested in developing a deeper connection with? Just one layer of deeper connection with. And what is one small, bite-sized risk that I could take to open up to them and see if it's reciprocated? Not by completely exposing yourself to vulnerability in such a way that it feels so extreme that you overwhelm your nervous system, but just one small, thoughtfully chosen experiment to see what the response on the other side might be. I would love to hear from you on how this experiment goes if you choose to take this gentle challenge. So please let me know. You can send me an email at anna@annaholtzman.com. I love hearing from you. And if you are looking for a coach to walk alongside you as you take those next steps into connection and belonging, you're always welcome to reach out to me. And if you are looking for a group to support you as you make these experiments, there are a couple of spots open right now in my group, Seen and Safe. And you can learn more about that at annaholtzman.com/seen and safe. I look forward to being here with you next time, to connecting with you, and you always have a place of belonging here.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please do me a favor. Hit that follow button so you don't miss a thing and leave a rating or review. It helps more people find this show, and honestly, it makes my day. And if you're looking for more ways to trust yourself and start listening to that gut instinct of yours, come hang out with me on Instagram at Anna_Holtzman. Let's keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, trust yourself. You've got this.